Hello and welcome to Undercommon Taste. This is a podcast where we create and discuss homebrew content for tabletop RPGs.
Fear is the mind killer. Fear, I will let the fear pass over me and through me, and when it's gone, only I shall remain.
I'm Ian Woodworth. I'm joined by my co-host James Daly. Welcome to the first episode of 2023.
Yes, I'm shaking off the cobwebs. I blanked for a moment, like, wait, what am I doing? I see lights and everything. Why are they staring at me?
Thank you for joining us tonight. We have a special guest with us tonight. We have one Sam Leigh, solo RPG creator and author of the, is it Ennie-nominated or winning? I can't.
Ennie-nominated, yeah.
Ennie-nominated solo RPG Anamnesis. Sam, welcome.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and start off, if you would please, for our listeners, introduce yourself and your work a little bit.
Sure. So as Ian said, I'm Sam Leigh. I use she, they pronouns. And I design TTRPGs under Blinking Birch Games. So my games can be found at blinkingbirchgames.itch.io. And other than writing TTRPGs, I do some like commission design work. I also make playlists for people's RPGs.
Ooh.
And I do TikTok videos about different indie RPGs. And
Awesome.
So I'm on Twitter and TikTok at Goblin Mixtape.
Fun.
Excellent.
So the questions we normally ask with part of our introductions is, one, your preferred playing class, and what would your actual class be?
Oh boy. Are we talking traditionally D&D classes here usually, or?
That's generally what most people go with, but if you
Okay.
want to pull from a different system, go for it. Feel free.
Wow. What I know what my playing class would be, but I think my playing class is Warlock.
Okay.
And my actual class is probably Wizard.
Okay, no,
Because
nice.
I'm very. I do not think I would have innate magic at all. I think it would have to be through the books.
It would be through study. No, I love that.
Yep.
I love that. Yes, no, that is totally a thing.
And
I'm right there with that.
I understand that play style of I want the power now.
Yes.
So I'm just going to make a deal to get the power now and worry about the consequences later.
Yeah.
Consequences. If you're strong enough, you don't have consequences.
Yeah, obviously.
Right.
If Magnus
Clearly.
has taught us anything, it's this.
As long as the consequences can't catch up to you,
That's
they
right.
don't exist. Yeah.
Right?
It's
Yeah.
only
Right.
hubris if you're punished for it. Otherwise, it's just self-confidence.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so we invited you on to talk about solo RPGs.
Great.
So let's go ahead and start off with the baseline question of what is a solo RPG and how is that different than just playing a regular TTRPG by yourself?
Sure. Solo RPGs, kind of in the name, it's specifically designed to be a game that is a single player game designed to play yourself. So you don't need a whole other group for it, and you don't need a GM too. So sometimes I've gotten a question a couple times, like, does solo mean that it's one GM and one player? Typically, solo means that it's just the player and it's just yourself, and that's all you need. And it's specifically designed for that. So the big difference there is that, there are some games that you can kind of modify or tweak to play by yourself, but a solo RPG is specifically designed for that.
I love that. And I am so glad this has become more of a thing later. I do a lot of online gaming, a lot of video gaming. I always said I played video games so I didn't have to play with people. So when Facebook Farmville became a thing, I just resented it because now I have to have friends to ask for more energy. Even something like WoW. I have a hard time playing in with groups if we're not doing a specific dungeon where I need people hey, let's pair up and do quests. And I'm like, no, I'm over here. Thanks. Bye. I play games to avoid people. So, if I would have known about this in tabletop gaming, I would have been a total recluse.
Yeah,
More so than normal.
I never play like massive multiplayer games. They're just not for me, for sure. I mean, even with playing, I enjoy playing video games with people sometimes, but I usually can't for an extended period.
I get that, yeah.
Yeah, my problem is I don't like player versus player games.
Same here, actually.
And I have trouble finding people who match my pace in PvE games.
Yeah.
Because
I tend to go very quickly.
Right. I want to sit there and like read the lore in every book. I'm one of those weird people. I played WoW for the lore. I mean, the game was good, but I wanted to know the depth of the story they built. So I'm like, yes, I love this. And this goes back to Warcraft 2 and this connects to Warcraft 3. And here's something from me. And I'm like, this is something they actually I could see where they stole from StarCraft from this one or Diablo. And so I'm like, and then Lever's like, dude, just pick the flower. I'm like, no.
I mean, I do have the achievement for reading all of the books, and I did actually read all of the in-game books that are on that achievement.
That is an achievement.
Yeah. Because there's like 50, 60 titles on that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I haven't played WoW, but
now granted, that's like 3-4 pages per book.
Okay.
Still,
okay.
You have to find them all and read them all. But
yeah.
But yeah, so.
But yeah, no. Anyway, this concept of the solo RPG, I think that's really cool. I think it's definitely something that had a spark with COVID, and again, we couldn't quite get together, and not everyone had quite figured out the whole virtual tabletop situation yet, which again has a lot going for it. It can be a little wonky still, but yeah, if you just have that Jones for a game, or you kind of want to work out something, or just work out some kinks before you bring it to a group. These solo RPGs are a great way to kind of test the waters before you jump in both feet, especially if you're not sure about a new game or how things are going to go.
Yeah.
Like if you've played once or twice maybe, and now you're going to be joining a new group and you're not sure and you kind of want to refine a character, a great way to do that.
Yeah, agreed. There's like a lot of there's so much variety of solo games. So many of them have been published in the last couple of years that you can find stuff for, character creation, map making, like all sorts of stuff to either help you as a character or as a GM.
Yes.
Yeah. So what is your design process whenever you're coming up with a new solo game, and how do you decide what is or isn't a good idea for a solo game?
I think that distinguisher is difficult sometimes. But I think that mostly my design process has been some designers think of like a mechanic and then they design around a mechanic. I'm much more of a have a concept, like a type of story that I want to tell, a type of like tone that I'm going for, a type of theme that I want to explore, and then I try to develop mechanics that revolve around that. So usually when I'm first designing something, it stems from that original idea, and then for me, when I'm doing mechanical design, that like early stages of design, it's always pen and paper, like writing stuff down, just spitting everything on the page, like even stuff that doesn't sound like it's a good idea, and then later on, I kind of take the bits that I like, and then I kind of expand on those. I think as far as solo games go, I try to keep them pretty simple as like in terms of the actual mechanics, because it's you can have complex solo games for sure, but if you're like one person who's sitting down to play this game, then at least for me personally, I wouldn't want to spend like a whole hour reading through a rule book before I can start playing. But I also personally just enjoy rules light games as a whole. So maybe that's just me. But I try to keep mechanics pretty simple, and I try to also make sure that there's not a ton of materials that are needed. So usually only like 1 or 2 physical materials. before you can get started. So anything that kind of balloons outside of that, I try to kind of modify so that it's restrained to just, more simple mechanics, fewer materials. But I also try to focus on stuff that kind of allows a player to like creatively explore the space that they're in rather than telling a player what's going on. So because I think with solo games, they can be very personal and they can allow for a lot of exploration and you can go in a lot of different directions. And I like to allow people to really kind of branch off of that and kind of take the work in whatever direction they want to take it.
No, I love that. And it's kind of that whole open world concept versus, being railroaded. So I really like that, especially with your prompts and stuff that you've developed with some of your games. And it's like, okay, I really want to dive into these and you've left it so open. It could literally go any direction. And I'm like, yes.
Oh, thank you. It was very intentional. I wanted to make something that was both like I wanted to make something that was both setting and genre agnostic, which is not always easy to do.
Right.
But like kind of once you're in the space of it of like, what can you put in here? What can't you put in here? Then it gets a little easier. But so I'm glad you felt that way.
Yeah, because I was talking a little bit before we got started. I just recently finally played through Anamnesis, and when I started flipping cards and started getting my prompts, I had an idea of where I wanted the story to go, and then the cards decided otherwise.
No, you're doing
and the story went in a direction that I was not expecting it to go.
Mm-hmm.
And if I were just writing it just to write it, it wouldn't have gone. And so I really did enjoy that experience. It was very interesting.
That's another cool thing I think about solo games is that, especially these solo journaling games. So, because not every solo game is a solo journaling game, but there are a lot of solo journaling games, and Anamnesis falls into that category. But with those, it really is. I mean, a lot of them can also kind of be considered as like just writing exercises. Whether you would classify Anamnesis as a game or a writing exercise doesn't really matter to me. I think you could make arguments for either.
You really could.
Yeah. And so I think that it kind of provides a tool a lot of these games can provide a tool to help you like write about things that you might not always write about, or to, expand to the right outside of your comfort zone, to kind of take things and to help you consider new ideas.
I get that too. And even if you're not even if you're on the fence, like, do I want to try a solo RPG? Do I like my group. I like having my friends and pizza night and all that. The thing with the journaling solo RPGs, that translates so incredibly well to group play. Because there's always someone burning some extra time in group where you could just jot down some notes. And even in group play, that player that takes notes so they can remember stuff on what the hell's going on, so you don't forget that MacGuffin you got two weeks ago.
Bless them.
Yeah, bless exactly. That's everybody says bless that person. Be that person. Be that player. And this is a way to learn that skill and kind of develop it. And again, at home on your own time, away from the table. So you bring it to the table and you like, oh my God, it's D&D God, and people start bowing down to that person and bringing gifts, it's like, here, have my firstborn child and a fried chicken and what's your favorite drink because you remember stuff for us, it's that being able to journal just carries so well. Mm-hmm. And solo RPGing is a great way to cut your teeth with that.
Yeah. I think that also, as far as like journaling games go, that even if you're not a big fan of writing, to not let that shy you away from a journaling game, because a lot of journaling games, while traditionally they are like written responses, you can really do anything you want with them. So for me, I'm not always in the mood to write prose, but you might make audio recordings instead. Ooh. Or you might just do like a bullet journal, or you could even just think through the responses. You don't even have to write anything down. You can just invent the story in your head. So the fact that it is journaling it doesn't have to be physical writing. It can just be any sort of way that you want to get your thoughts out. And that's in some texts explain that, like they some texts talk about writing. Some of them kind of talk about different options that you could use for journaling. Some games, like The Wretched by Chris Bissett, are actually talk about, hey, it's kind of designed for you to make an audio recording instead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different stuff. So I would say that if you're not sure about journaling, it might be kind of broader than you think it is.
Okay. I'm going to slightly skip on one question here a little forward. I'm not going to cover it completely. But as you said, a lot of these games, they can be games or they can be writing prompts. And so again, if you yourself are trying to become a budding or starting writer, or if you've got a child or a friend that's trying to do that, pushing them in these games so they can write. And then if they go back and look at this journal they've kept at the end of the game, they have a very healthy skeleton and outline of a short story that they can go and use that as a starting point. And that really lets them kind of build that. And now they have a story fleshed out, and it'd be a lot easier to fill in versus trying to create something out of whole cloth too. So again, likewise, as you said, if you are trying to stretch your writing skills, or if you have just a really terrible case of writer's block, doing a game like this is a great way to kind of stretch through that.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that, especially with the writer's block. There's games in all sorts of genres, so you can definitely find something that really interests you. So just be self-indulgent about it. Find a game in a genre that you love and just dive into it and have fun with it, and don't try to necessarily produce good writing, but it can really help with the block for sure.
Yeah, because sometimes you just need volume.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sometimes that's all it takes is, just get everything out of the way.
Yeah.
That is the hardest thing for me to learn as an artist of anything, because you want to make that good piece, or you want to make that good item. And sometimes you've got to make a lot of really crappy items to learn where your mistakes are and how to refine that. And even my last class, my art studio class, this was brought up as a reading assignment things. And it really brings home that, quantity has a quality all of its own. And it's that you have to make those crap pieces sometimes.
People talk about that in writing all the time. And it's very true for game design too. I get a few people have, I think mostly because of TikTok, and I cover all these different games on TikTok, and some people have asked me hey, what is your advice for an aspiring game designer? And it truly is just write, which is the advice that everybody gives when you're how do I write? And it's just try and put pen on paper. And there's some other stuff too with it, probably best to try to start with something small, start with something that you're personally really passionate about. Don't make it perfect, but honestly, just getting something down and not caring too much whether it's a good game or not is the best advice that I would give people. Because it really is the same case. You're going to make a bunch of games, and some of them are not going to be fun, but hopefully they're still fun to write, and you just learn from them.
Yes, absolutely.
Because doing something poorly is the first step to doing something kind of good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It really is. And that is such a hard truth. Hard truth.
Because doing something poorly means that you have done it, which means you're one step ahead of someone who hasn't done anything.
Yes.
Exactly.
And it's a difficult concept to actually accept.
Yeah, very much so.
As someone who had a lot of early success, especially in school, I fall into that a lot of, I can't do this very well right off the bat, and I get frustrated and give up on it. So that it takes a lot of wherewithal to just tell myself, yes, this is trash. This is hot garbage.
Yep.
But
learning has happened. Yes.
I feel that.
and the next one will be better.
Yes. So diving back again, kind of pulling us back along the rails, because, again, I am chaos, it's just how my brain works. With a solo RPG, again, when you're sitting at a group at a table, a session can be 2, 3, 4, 6, 8 hours long.
Mhm.
How long should a session, like a one-off or something like that, on a solo RPG take? I mean, I know when you're writing, it's as much as you write and as much as you do, but how long do you think each, act or piece of one of these games that you've created, how long should it take?
That is, I think that's a lot of personal preference.
Okay.
I know that for me, I feel like as far as my games go, they're mostly designed to. Usually, you can break them up. So,
Okay.
like Anamnesis has its different acts.
Right.
Six Figures Under has its different like mini games. So you can just play like one act or one mini game if you just want something that's a little shorter. But in total, I think that you could write a lot for Anamnesis if you wanted to. But if you're writing kind of more brief things, probably maybe around 3 hours, I would say,
Okay.
for the whole thing. But for me personally, like if I pick up a solo game, usually like 3 hours is probably the maximum amount of time for me,
Right.
unless I like am going into it knowing that it's going to be like a longer
And you
thing.
hit
That's
that
something
like
that's
flow, you hit that groove.
yeah,
I
yeah.
know most people are like 3 hours of writing, they're having like college or high school flashbacks. The 3 hours is not constant writing. It is thought,
Yeah.
it is revision, it is that. But like if you were going to go through and say, hey, I'm going to play this game, I'm going to set aside a time block to introduce myself to this game. So 3 hours or less depending on. So yeah, that's not too bad.
Yeah. Usually I actually prefer even like shorter chunks especially if I'm doing writing. If I decide to actually journal for a game, usually I don't usually my like attention on it lasts about like an hour and a half, right?
Okay, yeah,
And
that's
so
normal.
I prefer to break it up.
Okay.
But there are some games that like I think if it's a shorter game and I just kind of would rather play it in one sitting, then yeah, maybe like around 3 hours,
Okay.
I would say. But I think that can vary a lot for sure.
Awesome.
From your perspective, from a design perspective, what aspects of designing a solo RPG are different from a traditional TTRPG, and what aspects do you feel carry through fairly well between the two?
I think that they can be very different from each other, because something that I really well, if I'm writing a game for a group, which I've written a couple of them for groups and I'm working on others, but there's a element to group gameplay where when you're designing the game, at least for me, it's really important to consider player dynamics, like the group dynamics. So earlier, Ian, you mentioned that like you're not a huge fan of PvP games.
Right.
And like I kind of feel that way about RPGs too. But I also feel that way about accidentally creating a more PvP environment in a game. So, having things in a game that might make the players themselves bicker instead of the characters. So there's kind of and different groups are going to have different dynamics and you can't design for every single group. Your game isn't going to be for everyone. But the group dynamics is something I think about a lot. And, how are the mechanics going to impact like the feelings of the whole group and the feelings that the players have about each other? And so that is something that I really keep in mind with group games, but with a solo game, you don't have to think about that at all. That is not a problem in solo games.
You don't have to deal with people. It's magic.
Yeah, there you go. So with a solo game, it is like this is fully dedicated to one person. And that one person could be anybody, right? But all of the attention is on the one player. And so I think also with solo games, you can get really personal with them if you want to. And you can do that with group games too. Like group games can get really personal and they can get really emotional. But not all groups are like that. And sometimes there's things that you want to explore that you don't want to explore with a group, right? And So, or sometimes, there's a particular thing particular genre that you like that the rest of your group doesn't like. And so you can find a solo RPG in that genre and just enjoy that for yourself. So I think that designing solo games, you can kind of write them in a way where you are aware that this person is playing it by themselves. And so you can kind of encourage that really like deep dive into you can open the doors for them if they want to step through it into exploring things that they might not want to explore with a full group.
That.
Yeah, that's kind of the big difference for me.
You're saying that. I'm thinking, me, I'm kind of, I'm larger, I'm a little burly looking. And so there was a Netflix show, I'm trying to think Burlington, where it's all like Victorian tea party. So yeah, I'm going to just roll a solo RPG of a Victorian tea party just to be completely out of my comfort zone and see what happens. And that's one of those things you can do. It's not something I would normally probably do with a group of people or my things because it would come off really awkward and weird. But you know what? I'm by myself. I'm going to stretch my wings a little bit, do a little flap, and see how I do.
It's great. It's like it is a way that you can just kind of. I think that it's funny because, like in group games, it's not uncommon for people to put a lot of themselves into their character, right? And that is something that some people do unintentionally. That's something that some people do intentionally. But it is something that I think is a little bit easier to do sometimes in a solo game.
Yeah.
So, or can be done with even more intention, or done with without a worry that the rest of the group dynamics might not be like conducive to what you're trying to explore.
Free. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, I totally get that.
Yeah. I think that as far as like what is kind of similar between group and solo games, I mean, in both games, you are kind of designing. This is kind of more vague, but in my opinion, like in making an RPG, you're making an experience for someone to go through. So, like whether that is a solo experience, whether that is a group experience, you're still kind of creating something that, in the end, you want the person who is experiencing it to feel something. And whether that something is like introspection, whether that something is just fun, like it's kind of, usually you're designing it in order to elicit something from somebody. And I think that is I think that's really variable for both group and solo games of what that might be. But they're always kind of designed with that in mind. And I think that some things mechanically, there are some, so like I would say that a lot of journaling games, there's not a lot in them mechanically that translates a lot to group games. But there's a lot of other solo RPGs that are not journaling games that are more like sword and sorcery sort of things. Admittedly, I haven't played a lot of them, so I can't really speak to them well. But things like, I hope this is the right name, Iron Sworn, I believe, is like a really big solo game that is it kind of lends a little bit more to like the style of group games, but for a solo experience. So there's stuff like that out there too, and that's a little bit more similar.
Okay. So if you had somebody who was interested in getting into solo games, what games aside from yours? We're gonna talk about yours here in a minute. But what other games would you recommend someone to start with? Just to sort of figure out what flavor they like.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, so one that is talked about a lot that I think deserves to be and is I think it's a cool starting point is The Wretched by Chris Bissett, which I mentioned briefly earlier. But this is also a journaling game. It's like a sci-fi horror game.
Ooh.
Yeah, right. And it uses it creates suspense through a Jenga tower, through a tumbling block tower. So as you roll dice and draw cards and like reflect on different prompts and make these different recordings, your spaceship or your space station, I think it's a ship, is like gradually falling apart. And the tower represents the integrity of your ship. So if the tower falls, your character dies. So you're trying to either get the ship back in working order or to like hail another ship before either your tower falls or the creature that's been like running around the outside of your ship gets in and ends you.
That is a great concept. I love that. It's
really good. It was a big inspiration for Anamnesis. Tonally, they're very different, but the kind of in The Wretched, the different suits of cards are divided into different topics. And it's different than how Anamnesis does it, but there's a lot of similarities to it. And I took some inspiration for that for writing Anamnesis. But the cool thing about The Wretched is that it has this SRD, this system reference document, that describes the rules of the game, that describes the mechanics and encourages people to create other games using the SRD. So these games are called Wretched and Alone games.
Okay.
Yeah, and so basically people use this SRD to create their own Wretched and Alone games that use the system of The Wretched, but take it in completely different, like totally different stories. And there are now hundreds of Wretched and Alone games. That sounds amazing.
I've got, and I picked it up last year. It's the Alien RPG books, and I'm really wanting to play this, and I have not been able to get a group, scheduled together to sit down and play this.
Mm-hmm.
This Wretched, especially with the whole Jenga tower thing going on top of it, sounds like a perfect mesh to do a solo Alien RPG.
Yes.
With that, oh my god, that could be a lot of fun.
It's pretty cool. It's really fun.
That might be a rabbit trail I have to chase.
The cool thing about it is that if you try The Wretched or you try one of the other Wretched and Alone RPGs and you really, really like it, there are literally hundreds of RPGs that use, or I should say at least very similar mechanics. If you like Wretched and Alone, there are hundreds. And you can kind of find one in any flavor that you want it in.
Nice.
So that's a great place to start. I always have to recommend the first solo game I ever played, which is The Portal at Hill House by Travis Hill and Lindy Ferris Hill. And this is a game of cosmic horror. Might be sensing a trend. And it is basically about making your way through a house or another building. And you're trying to find these like 3 items that you have to use to close a portal before it's too late. And in this game, you draw cards to see like what feeling each room evokes and like what weird features are in each room, and then you journal about like going through each room. And it's very hard to describe the like feelings that I got from playing that game, but it was like eerie, but in this like, I don't even know. It was really good though. I had not felt like writing. I hadn't done much writing in a while, but I really wanted to play this game. And as soon as I started playing it, it was great. It was like, the writing was just flowing out. So I loved that game. And so and that was my first solo game. So I recommend it as a first one as well.
I know I jokingly mentioned the Victorian Tea Party thing. I think it probably really could be done. And then I suddenly remembered there was a Facebook post, I can't remember if it was last year or year before, where it talked about Mary Shelley, where she lived with Lord Byron while she was writing Frankenstein. And I mean, really, if you look at that, that would be a solo RPG. And it was like roll a 1d6 and you had like certain things brought infamy or renown, or Lord Byron just going mad over something. And really, that is a bare bones solo RPG. When you think, I'm like, oh wait, that's what that is. Oh, look at that. I've seen these before.
Speaking about Frankenstein, I might, somebody will have to fact check me on this, but I think it's a solo game. There is a game that somebody, I think it's Armanda, published recently called The Creature, and it's very much like Frankenstein inspired. Nice. There's stuff out there for everything.
I love it.
One that I see mentioned a lot that I haven't had a chance to look at is 1,000-Year-Old Vampire.
Yeah. Yep. I do have it on my shelf, but I have not played it yet. But I hear it talked about all the time, and I've only heard glowing things about it. So, yeah. And I love vampire media, and so I think I'd have a blast with it. But yeah, it's definitely on my to play list for sure.
I think for, again, kind of reaching out to, our traditional gamers, our video gamers, if you really enjoy, and they're becoming popular now too, but like the little indie solo roguelike games, these solo RPGs very much have these roguelike feels. They're simple, they're easy to run, they don't take too long to actually produce, and then each time you play it, it's going to be vastly different because so many different things can change. So it's not the same game over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm. I haven't played it yet, but Spencer Campbell just released Rune. Or is in the process of releasing Rune, and it's very, if I'm remembering correctly, it's very Souls inspired. So that might be one to look into for
Prepare
sure.
To die a lot.
Yeah.
Draw a card and you die. Draw another card and you die again. You die twice.
Roll a couple dice. That's how many times you die.
It becomes sort of a Darkest Dungeon sort of thing. It's like, fail better next time.
Exactly. I love Darkest Dungeon too. And again, that's a great little roguelike. Yeah, no, I love it.
Yeah.
All right. So your game Anamnesis uses a tarot deck as the method for randomization of your prompts. Mm-hmm. Why did you decide to go with tarot instead of a more traditional randomizer like dice?
Yeah, when I first had the idea for Anamnesis, I didn't immediately know that I was going to use tarot. I knew that I wanted to limit it down to one material. So like you need the game and you need one other thing. So whether that was playing cards, whether that was dice, I wanted it to be simple in that matter. And then tarot occurred to me because tarot cards can just tell a story in and of themselves. There's all sorts of just beautifully designed cards, and every single card in a tarot deck tends to evoke a different feeling when you draw it. And so it seemed very thematically appropriate for a game that was about like remembering your past. And it's almost like this like reverse divination, like what happened, what used to happen.
Right.
And so I wanted to create prompts that were open-ended, where you could really kind of explore them in a lot of different ways. And I realized that tarot kind of allowed the opportunity to get inspiration from a card. So rather than just drawing a card, in Anamnesis, there are cards that are just drawn for prompts. But then you also draw on the major arcana to get more of like the feeling behind that prompt and like inspiration and how to write on that prompt. So having the major arcana and using that basically allowed for kind of, Ian, what you're talking about, like exploring things in maybe a slightly different direction, or to just get additional inspiration. Wherein, like, if you read a prompt, you might have a first instinct, or maybe you're not really positive what direction to take it in. And by drawing a major arcana card, you can be inspired in maybe a totally different direction.
Right.
And so, and also the game is about learning about your past, but it's also about identity and like how to move forward as well. So it was by kind of drawing these cards and especially drawing the major arcana, which are like describing more about how you're feeling about things and like what specifically was happening, rather than keeping the prompts completely open-ended, by having that like also additional limitation of like, this is the major arcana card that guides you. It kind of has to do with like, well, this is your past. This isn't rewritten, right? This is what happened. But then kind of that changes towards the end of the game. And so that was kind of something that was like a theme that I wanted to explore through it.
I like it.
Thanks.
No, I really do like that. And I'm kind of thinking like my brain wants to turn like the game and then to like at the end of the game, there's actually like a tarot reading for the player out there too, kind of a thing, which would be
that
really
would be
fun twist
really,
on that. Yeah.
That would be very cool.
Yeah.
That would be really interesting, actually. Oh no.
We do ideas here.
Yeah. Hey, there's currently I'm currently hosting a game jam for Anamnesis, actually, the Anamnesis Jam. So somebody wants to write it.
Now there's another project to tackle. Now, more articles, look.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea. I didn't just like stepping back a little bit. There's a something that's really important in RPGs that is discussed more and more is safety in RPGs.
Yes,
and so
absolutely.
like Anamnesis is a game that I don't know that I know anybody who's played it in a more lighthearted manner, but like it technically could be if you wanted to. Right. But it's possible to play it on more like a surface level basis, but it's possible to like dive in a lot deeper with it. And so having this having like a post game tarot reading for the player themselves is such a cool idea. Like just like a reflection on it and like a way to like process what you've just played.
Actually, how you said, a lot of people, and it's a natural thing, put themselves into their characters. So maybe some of those cards, will leak out too. So yeah, that's again just a thought. But that does lead me to another question we had, as again, talking about one, being mindful of the topics you cover. And again, these games can be used as a form of self-care. And journaling is a very well-known form of self-care, trying to process things, work things out, remember things, try to get things settled in your own mind, dealing, coping. Do you think this is a prompt? I mean, there are things like play therapy and things like that, where this could actually be a tool of self-care for people.
I think so. I really subscribe to the idea that RPGs can be used for like teaching and for processing. And I think that I absolutely think that solo games in general can really be used to process things. Honestly, one of the coolest things that has come out of Anamnesis is that I have like read some comments and a couple of people have messaged me about putting more of themselves in their character, and like going through some like exploring pieces of themselves through Anamnesis, which is like one of it's like that's the best feeling I think I've had as a game designer, and so people have used it for that before. And that wasn't its intended purpose when I first wrote it. But like seeing that is what people have gotten from it is just incredible. And so, yeah, I think it's absolutely, I think RPGs are a great route of doing that. And especially solo RPGs, where you can, where you have this judgment-free zone, and you can kind of explore what you want to in unique ways. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. So let's let's take a little bit of a shift to something a little more lighthearted.
Yeah, sure.
The other game that you mentioned, Six Figures Under, which has
okay.
one of the best subtitles.
Thank you.
Or you went through 10 years of necromancy school and they never taught you how to market yourself. I felt that so hard. I felt that subtitle so hard.
Yeah.
It is a lighter game. It has a lot of camp to it.
Yes.
It has a very Dresden Files meets Dr. Frankenstein sort of feel
really
to it.
does.
That is incredible. That's quite an analogy. I love that.
So which game did you feel was an easier project, or did you feel one game was an easier project than the other? And about how long did it take you to get from concept to product for these two games?
I think that overall, Six Figures Under was an easier project because, and I guess mostly the big reason why is because I cared more about Anamnesis being good. Like, Six Figures Under was a lot of fun. It was very much a fun game for me to write. It was like I actually wrote it immediately after writing Anamnesis. Like it was the next thing that I wrote, and it was just like a way to just be silly and to just, it was just fun. I think mechanically speaking, Anamnesis is simpler, only because Six Figures Under is a series of micro games, a series of very short games, and each of those short games is slightly different from each other. So you could make the argument that overall Six Figures Under has more mechanics than Anamnesis does, because the mechanics of Anamnesis are extraordinarily simple.
Yes.
And Anamnesis didn't actually, if I'm remembering correctly, it didn't take me a really long amount of time to figure out the mechanics. But it took me a while to write all of the prompts, because there's a prompt for every minor arcana card. And so figuring out those prompts and refining them and like writing extra ones and then ditching the ones I didn't like, right? It took a lot of time. And so I would say Six Figures Under, even though it has I don't even remember. I think it's 6 different games in it. Even though it's 6 different games, it was easier to write because it was just kind of more of like a fun little project. And in kind of like a fun tone too. Very
tongue in cheek. I love it.
Yeah, thank you.
So what you're saying is it was your catharsis after Anamnesis.
Probably. I don't know that I realized that at the time, but looking back, it very well might have been. But I also, as far as the amount of time that it took, so Six Figures Under was submitted as part of a game jam. So I wrote it as part of I think it's Spring from the Graves jam that Keegan EXE held. And this was basically a necromancy themed jam. Okay. And I necromancy, great, love it. Yeah. So I was like, I gotta write something for this. And so that's kind of what came from it. So I really wrote it. I mean, I would say I wrote it in a month, but the reality is I work a full-time job, right? And I kind of design around things. So it probably took me less than 20 hours, maybe, from start to finish. But I'm not 100% sure. But that would be my guess. And okay. Anamnesis took longer because even though I also wrote Anamnesis, I wrote the rough draft of Anamnesis in about a month. But I spent a lot more time on it than I did with Six Figures Under within that month. And then after that, I put a team together. So I had I basically did a round of crowdfunding through the website Itch.io, and I was able to hire Mark Shepard to do the editing. Thomas Manuel did the layout, and Victor Winter did all of the art. So after making the draft and having like the draft available, I worked with all three of them, who were fantastic. And so working with them took time, and then releasing the final product. And then we did the Kickstarter to bring it to print. And then there was the fulfillment of the Kickstarter. So if you really talk about like the whole thing, it was like a year.
Okay.
But that year was also filled of like, there were some gaps in time. There's a lot of learning that I was doing because it was the first time that I ever worked with collaborators, and the first time that I brought something to print. And the first time that I crowdfunded. So it was like a whole thing.
Learning has happened.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily like the best judgment of how long something take, but the actual like sit down rough draft, getting the rough draft down took me about a month for both games. Okay. But the refinement of it took longer.
And I can sympathize with you talking about the prompts for Anamnesis.
Yeah.
Because I've been working on something. I wanted to make sure I had a rough draft before I joined the Anamnesis Jam to have an idea that I could actually have a product to finish before the jam was done. So I've been working on one called Forever Home.
Okay.
Which is an adventure into the misadventures of homeownership.
Whoa.
And,
oh my gosh.
And I had just hit a wall where I'm like, I can't. I can't. And then
the prompts just stop. They just stop.
They do.
You get
they
like...
really do. And James was over today. We were working out some planning stuff for the podcast, and I'm like, yeah, I've been working on this thing, and he's like, no, we're gonna sit down. We're gonna knock these out. And so we were able to finish out my rough draft's worth of prompts today. So
congrats.
That's gonna hopefully be a thing.
That's so exciting.
Ian and I work like cool. This. My mind is like one of those like bag of fuzzy things, and so I just take it and I dump it on the table, and Ian's like, oh, that's a good one. And he grabs it and he runs with it.
I do have, I think Victor, who did the art for Anamnesis, came up with a couple of the prompts. So I got a little line in there at the end about that, for sure. It really does help to brainstorm with other people. I know that for Anamnesis, when I feel like it's like when your pipes freeze and your water runs out, right? Yeah. Like the ideas are flowing and they're flowing and they're flowing, and then suddenly it starts just trickling down, and then it's done, and you're like, oh no,
done, ran out of gas.
What do we do now? Yeah. Something that helped me with Anamnesis was because the each active Anamnesis takes place in like a slightly different setting or like focuses on a particular thing. So I actually kind of put myself in those settings. So one of the acts is about walking around town. So I walked around town. And that like actually helped me figure out a lot of different prompts. So kind of like trying to get into the zone of like those spaces definitely helped.
Yeah, so this whole game concept came around because, during the spring and summer and into the fall, I do a booth at one of the local farmers markets. My parents have a dairy. I sell cheese at the farmers market.
Nice.
And
okay.
so it was a cold day. It was a cold, wet day. It was miserable. I'd just gotten home, and I'm like, I just want to sit down, turn on my little heater, my little electric heater that I have on the floor, and just thaw out. And so I turn it on, and it goes whir.
I was like, I know where this is going. Uh-oh.
and then I smell it.
Oh no.
And so I then spend the next 6 hours rewiring the outlet that it was plugged into because it burned off the contacts.
Oh no.
And I had to do it because my daughter's room is on the same circuit, and all of the outlets in her room were dead.
Oh my gosh.
So So, so the joke I was making was I wanted to stay warm for an afternoon, and my house wanted me to stay warm for the rest of my life.
We was just trying to help,
and that was what got me. That was the inspiration that got me into starting on this one. Yeah, so
that is, I cannot. I'm so excited about that. That sounds so cool. What an idea!
And it starts off very innocuous, like a very minor inconveniences. And then each act escalates.
Perfect. I love it. I love it
to
so
where
much.
at the end it's almost Thunderdome. It's either the house.
Oh my god!
It's either the house or you. One of you is going to be standing at the end.
I cannot wait. That sounds so good.
Yeah. All right.
Speaking of ideas and stories, I loved Six Figures Under. I've got this soft, squishy spot in my heart for necromancy. It might be a little necrotic.
Yes.
We won't let the doctors look at it. It'll be fine. But I totally would love to see something with like some different skill sets, like maybe like a bard or a ranger trying to do like house sitting, animal sitting, maybe working for like along the line of a zoo, or maybe like a cleric trying to find like priest jobs and throughout the community trying to do this. And I was wondering if there'd be any like idea or hope for that coming out maybe with this.
That sounds amazing. I had never thought about that before. That's an awesome idea. I love that idea. Like taking kind of different like traditional fantasy archetypes and being like, okay, now you're working like a 9-to-5.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And like, what are you doing? And that sounds delightful. I can't say that I currently have plans to write that, but if anybody out there like wants to hack Six Figures Under for it, they have my blessing. Like that sounds so much fun.
It sounds to me, James, like you need to write up something and let me edit it for you.
Yeah, probably. That list is growing, isn't it?
It would be fun to have a warlock one.
Yes.
It would be. Yeah.
Oh.
I don't even know what those would look like. Like how is your Patreon just like
I have it.
Just interfere. Oh yeah? Yeah.
Pattern it like The Bachelor. You're shopping for a patron.
Oh, yes. Yes. So, patron, what is your favorite time of year?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Patron, tell me your best first date.
There is a game. There is a game. It's not a solo game, but there is a game called Dating.sim. An RPG by Possible World Games, who did Beak, Feather, and Bone. I play tested this. It's incredible. It's literally that. It's literally a dating show. You have like it's like a 4 or 5 person game, and one person plays the like I don't know the terms, right? Bachelor, bachelorette, whoever is like picking, right? And then you have like the contestants, and then the person playing the one who's choosing like asks the questions, and then every player like answers in their characters, with what the characters' answers are, and then whoever gets chosen, it like swaps for there's 2 parts, so it like swaps in the second part where then that player who their character is chosen, that player then like essentially acts out this date with the person, and presents these scenarios that then the 3 other players have to like suggest things for the date to do during these scenarios, and you like pick your favorite.
I think we have a Friday project, Ian.
maybe just.
I'm seeing a blend between Greek and Norse and Fey pantheons.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
We got to throw the Egyptians in there too.
We can throw the Egyptians in there too. Probably just the major ones for the Egyptians that people are familiar with. And then like that could be a thing. And then the second half with prompts is like stuff that goes on with the date. So like, if Eris is one of these things and now she's pissed and so she's just throwing roadblocks because you didn't pick her, because as she does.
Yeah.
Golden apples everywhere.
Love that. I would play that in a heartbeat.
All right. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our prepared questions. James, do you have any other questions?
No, I've got mine out.
All right. So, one of the things that we love to do with our guests when we have them on is a segment we call the Monster Mashup, where we roll some dice on our random table and we create a monster on the fly. So,
Excellent.
if you are game and you have your dice ready,
Absolutely.
let's go ahead and get started with a D4 roll for locomotion.
Okay.
That
is a 2.
A 2. We got another runner, James. It runs.
A runner. Okay. Okay. Uh-oh. Maybe. Uh-oh.
Next is a D6 for what does it eat?
Does it eat? Ooh. Uh-oh. This is what where this is where the fact that it runs matters.
Sometimes.
That's a 3.
A 3. Insects/vermin.
Okay.
This one pops up quite frequently.
Yeah.
But not too bad.
Interesting.
I mean, you got to catch that dragonfly. They can be sneaky.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And again, the other thing too is vermin is a very loose term, and so vermin, it depends on who you are, where you are, type thing. So
and it also depends on this next roll, which is also a D6 for size.
Oh, another D6, you said?
Yes.
Okay. That is a 6.
It's gargantuan.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, it's gargantuan and it runs. That's good. That's
impeding herd of
comforting.
elephants.
All right, so now we have the Titans from Attack on Titan.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no!
and the humans are the vermin.
Oh, that's no good.
Thank you for coming to our TED Talk. Next is a D8 roll for social organization.
Oh, okay.
Please roll low.
It's a 7.
Herd, 26 to 100 individuals.
Okay. Again, we're looking at something very similar to the zombies on Attack on Titan. Okay.
Okay. This one is going to inform a great deal. A D10 roll for native environment.
Okay. D10. That's a 10.
A 10. Underground.
Oh my. That I was thinking something along like a Jurassic Park type theme. And that shifts it.
So now we have like dune sandworms.
Sandworms?
Oh,
we have Underdark?
A herd of dune sandworms.
Oh my.
That's good.
Interesting.
It wouldn't quite be. I'm thinking like instead of like a single sandworm chariots.
Oh my god.
What if it's the head of like some sort of underwater or underground gorgon, and instead of snakes, each is like a sandworm head?
Oh no! Oh, that is
they are individuals there, but they are part of a larger collective whole.
That must be massive. The size of that gorgon.
Or even if maybe as a whole they are gargantuan, and each one are a little bit smaller, but they act as like almost like a fungal colony or something like that. Perhaps.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, maybe.
What if it's like? Oh, go ahead.
Maybe it's, if we're talking in D&D terms, maybe it's like a gargantuan swarm of huge creatures.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. I'm just picturing like if they're underground, like that's got to be causing some damage, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Earthquakes, also just tearing up.
Entire villages just disappear into sinkholes. Yeah.
Oh,
what's an ecological disaster amongst friends?
How do you defend against like an I don't know. Like you gotta.
That's what the wizard's for.
Moats, maybe.
Maybe
really deep moats.
We did that with one of our Arctic. Was it the Arctic tunneler?
The tundra behemoth.
Yes. Where it was a thing, and so people were digging moats to try it. It
No,
dug an actual moat.
it left tunnels.
It left moats, yeah, and they were trying to use them for defense and other things like that. So some people were trying to steal the young, which rarely ends well. So yeah, that was a fun one.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, underground.
All right. Next is a D12 or method of defense.
Okay.
You know, aside from, giant earthquake.
Yeah, aside from being just massive.
Yeah. Aside from being able to squash literally anything. Oop, that's a 6.
A 6. It has horns.
Ooh.
Okay.
Ooh, what if like
How literal are we dealing with underground? Does underground mean subterranean, perhaps? What if these are like horned devils?
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, like more of like a Hades situation.
Yeah.
Interesting. That
like a
could
Balrog or something like that,
Yeah. That's a horde of gargantuan creatures coming forth from the gates of Hades. That is terrifying. That's
a little bit.
A horrifying idea. Yeah.
Well, this next roll is going to either make or break a whole lot of stuff.
Okay.
It's another D12 roll.
Okay.
For creature type.
Oh. Okay. That's an 11.
An 11. It's a plant.
Venus flytraps.
Oh.
What was your thought, though?
I was leaning back towards like more fungal colonies, but carnivorous plants would also work very, very well.
I do like the idea of like a carnivorous fungal colony, though. Like terrifying. It's a terrifying idea.
Yeah.
But like, because running, right? Like like something that spreads that fast.
We had something like this in our episode 100, and we ended up going with running as in putting out runners.
Yes.
Like it was a vine.
Oh, that's interesting.
And again,
so we could revisit that.
We could definitely switch back to, like I said, some sort of underground carnivorous plant that, again, it can't photosynthesize. So now it is eating. And again, there are the ankegs, there's the formians. Again, vermin can cover a large swath of things. Plus, there are very large insects that this thing could trap and eat for its nutrition and resources.
And it also makes a whole lot of sense now that it is gargantuan.
Yeah.
Because it's a plant.
Yeah.
It could be like kudzu. It just grows.
These thorns could be straight. Instead of horns, they could actually be thorns.
Oh, I like that. I really like
they
that.
Might have either depending, they could even be slightly envenomated as well, or they could just straight be piercing damage. With a tendril that's spiked to kind of crush and constrict and trap.
Yeah, I can almost see doing like thorned vines that the thorns themselves are hollow. And this is going to get kind of gruesome, but what it does is that
I'm here for it.
It catches something big and it punches a bunch of holes in them and it sucks them dry like a straw.
Okay.
Love it. Perfect.
And then for defense, it could do that, or like a porcupine where it can slap and it just leaves a bunch of these tubes. Because even if you bleed out on its soil, it's going to absorb some of that anyway.
You're right.
Yeah.
That's good too.
Yeah.
Excellent.
It's almost like there's a really large root system, right?
Yeah.
So and it just like sucks in all of the nutrients from the blood.
I could see this thing migrating and moving towards where there were previous battles because the ground's going to be richer with nutrients.
Yeah. Or cemeteries.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Cemeteries. Okay.
Yeah. So like, because another fact about myself, the summer after I graduated high school, one of the scholarships that I got required me to work through the summer cleaning old family cemeteries.
Whoa.
And there were a couple that we were fighting off encroaching kudzu to clean out these cemeteries. And so that that sort of vibe. I can definitely see that with this monster. Yeah.
That's so interesting. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Kudzu is terrible to try and get rid of, though. It clogs everything. It's very fibrous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it grows like a foot a day in the summertime.
Oh my God.
You can sit and watch it grow.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
I'm just gonna be going down a whole YouTube thread after this.
Oh, yeah.
I really
it's
am.
scary stuff.
I can feel it. Yep.
Okay. So now we need a D20 roll for quirks.
Ooh, that's a fun one. All right. I've got it like the largest D20.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that is too big. Hang on. That's a 10.
A 10. Sentient. Capable of understanding language and higher cognitive functions.
Amazing.
I love it.
Horrifying. This thing is going to take over the world. It's fine.
Oh, I can make this thing absolutely horrifying. So when it attacks or like latches onto a creature and starts like pulling in its blood, it picks up its memories and its essence from that. And so like it can communicate with the thing as it's eating it. And that's how it knows where to go, where more bodies are going to be or where more conflict is going to be. So it can guide its movements towards that direction.
That is the worst thing I've ever heard. That is nightmare fuel. Wow.
I could make it worse.
Please.
Okay.
I could make it worse. It uses its prey as puppets to lure in more humanoids for prey.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Perfect.
This is
again, I'm bringing out the morally flexible. This is where the evil alignment comes out just a little bit.
That is extremely good. This is truly a monster that like is gonna take over the world if somebody doesn't stop it. That is the size of this thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, what if it is trying to push toward, like it is an underground plant and it has captured and killed enough that it knows there is surface life and it is trying to push towards the surface.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Sense. Like if a surface creature gets buried over time, right? And then it like absorbs the nutrients from that creature, maybe it can also...
It would know that. And again, if we're talking something like the Underdark, then, there are, it's not uncommon for there to be surface raids and things like that. And so if it can pick out the memories and knowledge of the things it's eaten, even if for a short time, it's going to know that up is a thing and there are much more things up than out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the more we talk about this, the more I am seeing that this thing is the result of some wizards experimenting.
Oh, of course. Of course.
Some wizard decided he was going to modify this plant to grow up the side of his wizard tower to keep people out. And it just got away.
So there was a halfling play called Little Shop of Horrors, and he thought it was a wonderful idea. And he said, why does it have to be an animal?
Didn't stay through the got called away for something after the first few scenes. I was like, wow, that's a cool plant.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And then
make one of those.
He forgot he left the potions on, so he had to like go and turn everything down, and he missed the rest of the play.
Right. Okay, so now we make it weird.
Okay.
So now I need a D100 roll, please.
Ooh. All right. There we go. Okay. Oh. Drop things all over the place. That is going to be a 46.
46. Oh, we've had this one before.
Really?
Bite causes agony on top of normal damage.
It just gets worse. It just keeps getting worse.
That's the bait, because they're screaming, so obviously you want to rescue your friends, right? Because they are in obvious pain.
No. It uses that too. Like it knows that its bites cause pain, so it's
and that was the initial intended.
Yeah, feature. I was going to say this thing is smart. It's envenomated, so it's going to go and it is going to actually use its thorns on particularly sensitive areas that aren't lethal to cause pain intentionally.
Yeah, because it's sentient,
malicious.
so it's going to be able to recognize that armored opponents are going to have soft spots.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
This is probably one of the most vicious things we've created.
I love it. I'm horrified. I love it so much. Also, like as it kind of gets more prey of like a specific like species of animal,
Right.
then you're going to learn. It's going to learn what the weaknesses are of that
Yeah,
species,
exactly.
right? Just
Yeah.
through like obtaining the information about the creature
Right.
through like absorbing the nutrients and everything, and then it just knows exactly where to strike next time.
Yeah.
Yeah, pleasant.
And now the more I think about it, I think that the wizard was probably one of the first victims, and that's why it's sentient.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because it absorbed his memories, and because it was a sentient creature.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Do we think that it has like a little bit of the wizard still in it? Like as in like is it like the wizard's consciousness in this plant?
Because
or
it was the first consciousness, so it's the
yeah.
base.
Or is it that like it's all of the victims are kind of mixed in there?
I could see all of the victims in there. Again, especially if we're talking Underdark. Underdark is not normally a happy, cheery place.
Yeah.
It is fairly combative, especially when you deal with the Drow. The Drow are not normally pleasant people. So it is going to be very opportunistic. That said, maybe it just outright enjoys causing pain too. And again, maybe it's either resentful for its creation, or maybe the wizard was just that. Maybe the wizard himself was an evil wizard and just got undid by his own doings. But that base, evil alignment is still running a heavy thread through.
I could see that. Yeah.
Hmm.
Anyway, we have one more weirdness. So James,
Okay.
I'm gonna let you use your new rubber ducky dice to give me another
Yeah,
D100
rubber
roll.
duckies of doom. These are awesome. So I've got my percentile here, and then I have a straight. Is that my? Yeah, that one's my D10. Oof. So I got to show these off because they're awesome. But
if they come through.
Yeah, if they come through. Oh wait, yeah, almost. Anyway, there's rubber duckies in the dice. They make me happy.
Amazing.
10.
10.
Ooh.
Collects teeth for its nest construction.
Stop.
Oh my god. Oh, and this is why we fear the dark boys and girls. Oh my. So
I can't even imagine how big that nest is.
Well, I'm thinking, how you get the pro gravel for some of your plants so that the soil can aerate? It's using teeth and probably other bone chips as it crushes them up to create its own pro gravel to keep its soil. It's sentient. It knows what it needs. And so, too, if you're going to bleed on that, it's going to soak through that faster versus caking in soil. So, yeah. I could also see it trying to use this to pack a root ball. So it could actually make it come up and transport eventually versus its runners and spreading out. It can actually potentially at some point, if it gets enough bone to hold a root ball together, uproot itself and move a distance before transplanting and replanting itself.
I'm seeing this more as like a spider plant where it has the little clusters that grow on the end and that eventually sprout off to make another plant.
Okay, that works too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
but even still, yeah, you'd use those teeth again as an anchor point or to modify its own soil. But I just scraped myself out. No. Oh my god. So it's doing like the whole hentai thing, but instead it's like forcing itself in the mouth and then just literally ripping out teeth.
Oh, horrible. Oh, oh no.
And we went there, ladies and gentlemen. And we went there. Okay. I blame James for all of this because it was his role too.
Terrifying.
Oh.
Horrifying. This is absolute nightmare fuel. I
It
love
is.
this. I love it.
We weren't monetized to begin with, and we're sure not going to be now. All right. Well, at this point, I think we can do a recap of what we got for this Nightmare Fuel. It runs. We interpreted this as it puts out runners. It feeds on insects/vermin. It is gargantuan in size. It has a herd organization of 26 to 100 individuals. It is underground as its native environment. It has horns, which we have reinterpreted as thorns.
Mm-hmm.
It is a plant creature type. It is sentient. Its bite causes agony on top of additional damage, and it collects teeth. So, the only question we have left is, what are we gonna call it?
Armageddon, probably.
The prickly pear.
The prickly pear.
Oh gosh.
Oh, geez, yeah. See, we can't call it something like Bloodthorn because there already is a D&D thing called Bloodthorn.
That is far too benign for this thing anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was probably the base plant that the wizard was experimenting with.
I could see that.
That makes sense. Yep.
And then
Assassin Vine's too easy. I'm thinking
Assassin Vine is also already a D&D monster.
right, but I'm thinking along that line, maybe like a Brute Vine or
You are the Brute Squad.
Exactly. I am the Dread Plant Roberts. There will be no escape.
There will be no survivors.
Yeah, can we just name it the Dread Plant Roberts? Maybe it had a name.
Whatever the wizard's name was.
Who says that the wizard's name wasn't Roberts, you know?
Exactly. Maybe I'll kill you tomorrow, Wesley.
No. I see that brain working. No. Do not. Do not continue that thought.
What if it could exert some sort of control via its agony and with any kind of telepathic link as it drives, so it has a selected sentient humanoid victim that it keeps as long as it's fresh to communicate with?
That again, this every single thing that we say about this thing makes it 10 times worse.
Yeah,
it just
sure.
keeps
So there will be no
building. It just
survivors.
keeps going.
I demand tribute.
I almost want it. I almost want its name to reflect its intended purpose.
Okay.
Because it was this wizard was working on it to try and make it like a guardian for his tower. It is a natural guardian sort of thing. And he just did either a really good or a really bad job at it.
I like the idea that he named it something really innocuous, like the go away vine. Like something like
the Thorn Familiar.
The Thorn Familiar. I like that actually because of like the idea of it like puppeting things.
And then he's like again tipping off the whole Little Shop of Horrors. Why does the familiar have to be an animal? So he was trying to make a sentient plant familiar.
Okay,
that's a good one.
Okay, yeah, because a wizard is able to have that telepathic link to their familiar.
Yeah.
Which does that mean that this thing also has telepathy?
I would say it has telepathy with whatever it has a blood link to.
Telepathy by contact.
Yeah.
This thing is huge.
It's gargantuan. Yes, it is. Yeah, it's massive.
And so the herd acts as a hive mind.
Well, because they're all children.
Yeah,
So
and they're all
they would have
physical
they would have the memories absorbed by the parent.
right. And if the children's are created by runners, as long as there's some runners attached to the rest of the herd, then they are all going to share thought and memory.
Yes.
God forgive us for what we've created.
You know, it's times like these that I'm glad I do not live in a fantasy world. I'm fine on Earth. That's good for me. I'm good here.
All right, I'm just gonna go ahead and stop us now before we make this any more horrific.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, Kimiko in chat says it sounds like a plant-based botfly. So James, congratulations, you have your botflies.
Yes. Though it doesn't invade and then burst forth from. So.
All right. So another thing that we like to ask of our guests is to give a shout out to someone else in the TTRPG community. It can be
yes, please cleanse the space.
Yes, it can be another game designer. It can be a podcaster, map maker, music maker, just somebody who is at least tangentially connected to the TTRPG sphere. Who would you like to give a shout out to tonight?
I would love to give a shout out to Kaden Ramstack, who he's like the best person to mention, especially on this stream, because if anyone, I don't know a single person who has played more solo games than Kaden Ramstack. And he's written a bunch of solo games. His games are at k-ramstack.itch.io. He's done this thing for the past couple of years called Solovember, where he plays a solo game every day in November.
Ooh.
And I will never achieve that level of dedication that Kaden Ramstack has achieved with Solovember. It's amazing. And he tweets about the games, like short threads and advertises them, and like just in general does really awesome work in the community, and his games rule. He also created the first hack of Anamnesis, which is about learning that you're a changeling. Which I played and was just incredible. But they've also got solo map making games and other stuff too. And so I think that he deserves I think he deserves more attention. And he's just like an awesome person in the space. So yeah, Kaden Ramstack is fantastic.
Excellent. And we will be putting all of those links in our show notes. So if you want to check that out, they will be in the show notes.
Awesome.
Bring. Excuse me.
I was wondering if we were going to get through without a Tourette's twitch.
Almost. We almost made it.
Almost. Well, we have gone a little bit long. So
yeah.
Last but not least, Sam, I want to give you the floor so that you can plug yourself. Where can we find you on socials? Where can we go to throw money at you? The floor is yours.
Sure. So I can be found pretty much most everywhere at Goblin Mixtape. That's kind of the handle that I tend to use. So I do a lot of RPG videos on TikTok where I feature different games or might talk about different bundles going on. And I am pretty active on Twitter, also at Goblin Mixtape. And then you can find my games at blinkingbirchgames.itch.io. And I also have a newsletter now, which is a new thing on Substack. But I have the best place to just for all of the links in general is I have a card. So it's samleigh.card.co. And kind of everything goes from there. But yeah, I've got some exciting stuff coming up that one of my goals in 2023 is to focus a little bit more on designing my own games. Because really, I did a lot of stuff that I'm really happy about in 2022, and I really had an amazing time in the RPG community in 2022. But I didn't really focus on my own design much, and so that's kind of what I'm trying to do moving into 2023. And I've got some stuff that I can't wait to share with people. So yeah. Thank you
Oh,
for the space and for inviting me here.
Oh,
Excellent.
of course.
Yeah,
Thank you so very much for coming.
And we will also be putting links to all of your stuff in the show notes so that people can find that there.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So again, thank you, Sam, so very much for joining us tonight for Undercommon Taste. It has been an absolute blast. We've loved chatting with you.
This has been great. I've loved this. This is great energy. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
I do need to figure out some sort of penance for what we just created, though. I'm going to feel bad about this.
We've just, whatever world that thing was in, we've destroyed it. We have marked it for death. Sorry, everyone. That's just, there's no way.
We're just gonna have to go and kill it with fire. Kill it with fire.
It has. Let's go ahead and just throw that out now. It is vulnerable to fire. We are going to give the citizens of that realm at least that. You burn it and then you salt the earth, and that is probably radiant damage.
Yep.
That is how we do it. We're gonna give it the Carthage treatment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very Roman. Yeah. Very Roman.
So thank you everybody who joined us in chat tonight, and thank you for listening and watching tonight. If you have any comments, suggestions, or ideas for future episodes, please send us an email, undercommontaste@gmail.com, or you can send it to us as a direct message through our Twitter account @UCTHomebrew, or however long the flaming husk of Twitter remains.
It's really, it just varies every day. It
really does. It really does.
Yeah.
We are also on TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, Mastodon at Undercommon Taste. We're at Undercommon Taste at dice.camp on Mastodon. If you want to follow us on other social media. We finally have our own website in progress. It should be going live fairly soon. So we'll be able to just say go to undercommontaste.com and avoid all
exciting.
We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/undercommontaste. That's where we put all of our write-ups. That's where the Thorn Familiar is going to be once I get that written up.
Excellent.
Yes, and we're working on figuring out some additional patron stuff. We are in the process of restructuring because I have not been contributing to the Patreon very much lately. Right. We also have an itch store, undercommontaste.itch.io. We have one game on there right now, Beneath the Lake, which is a liminal horror adventure.
Liminal horror is such a cool system.
Yes.
Yeah, we had Goblin Archives on here a couple months ago talking about liminal horror.
Awesome person.
We're slowly collecting
human being.
We're slowly collecting the goblins. we got you at Goblin Mixtape. We got Goblin Archives. We had Eric from Goblin's Corner for our Terraskmas anniversary game.
Fantastic.
So yeah, we're slowly collecting goblins, which is fun because we have a kobold for our logo.
Yeah, gobble.
So, and now that I have it far enough along, I can say that here within the next month, we're also going to have a solo game called Forever Home that will also be available on our itch store.
That's awesome. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see it.
So all patrons get all of our games for free. Everyone else, it is going to be on the itch store. This will probably also be a $3 game. So just if you want to help support the show financially.
Again, you can... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
And finally, we have a Discord. You can find the link to our Discord in our show notes. And we would love for you to come over and chat with us.
If this is your first time listening, welcome. We were so happy you joined us. And again, we are so very sorry about the Thorn Familiar. That said, you can find our other podcasts wherever you find your podcasts. We're on Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, Spotify. just search Undercommon Taste. You'll be very easy to find us. As Ian said, we are actually, getting ready to promote and push out a lot of stuff, so we'll have a lot more to offer. But as always, if you find us, please give us a rate and review. This helps increase our footprint so we're more visible, and it lets us know what kind of content you enjoy listening to.
So stay safe, everyone, and we will see you again in 2 weeks' time.
Happy gaming.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Undercommon Taste. Our theme song is Massacre Anne, written and performed by Mary Kroll and used with permission. You can find Mary online at marykroll.bandcamp.com or on Patreon at patreon.com/Dr. Mary C. Kroll. Our logo is by David Sutherland. You can find more of David's work on deviantart.com/David Sutherland or on instagram.com/Willex_73. We'll be back in 2 weeks, so stay safe, and we'll see you then.